is up, everybody? It is your friend, Justus West here. I like to call myself the leader of the Justice League because the Justice League is. I didn't invent the Justice League, but I did invent the Just Us League. So today I want to talk about fundamentals and keys of colorful guitar playing. And colorful can mean a wide variety of things. I'm not going to cover everybody's thing, and I don't want what you guys hear me say to like be taken as like cold hard facts, because everybody has their walk and their musical journey. And I want to respect that, but give gems and different things to help you advance. And so to have colorful playing, first off, your guitar needs to be set up right. Now, by the way, I will be able to see questions. So as I cover various topics, you guys can definitely drop the questions. The awesome producer here, Regina, will help us out with the technology side. And I will see these questions and answer them if I can. But anyways, we're going to start with a great setup guitar. Now, great setup means different things to different people. For me, I have large but small hands. Like compared to the average man, I feel like I have little hands. But I do have larger hands than the average person, if that makes sense. Now, I got bitten by a brown recluse spider in 2015, had a really bad run in with it, left a hole in my arm. It's crazy. And so I have permanent scar tissue damage in my left arm, which does affect, how my joints are functioning and all that. And so I typically play with really light gauge strings. And what the light gauge strings enable me to do is kind of move around the guitar quicker and get more bends going. Like, I can bend notes more, longer. Uh, and so it just kind of makes moving around the guitar easier, even for tours I was on where I'm playing most rhythm and I'm just like hammering out chords. It lighter gauge allowed me to go for longer. Now, in terms of brand, everybody's gonna have their reasons or their whys. I will say that a coated string is generally better, mainly because they just last longer. They're a little more expensive, but they're also gonna last on your guitar a lot longer, which is obviously good for your pockets. I mean, like, who wouldn't want that? Um, so yeah, strings are definitely a thing. I personally play with nines. A lot of my homies play with 9.5s, which is super common, where you have heavier gauge on the bottom, the lower strings, and then lighter on the top. Or there's like 9.5 custom, where it's heavier on the bottom and lighter on the top strings. Like whatever floats your boat, dude. That is the thing that will get you to shore. I just made that up. And I wish that I could see the look on all your faces right now with that awesome little thing I just made up. Anyways, so that's kind of the first topic, string gauge. From there, we get into pickup setup. Now I'm playing with my Abasi right now. Two active pickups. These are the Fluence pickups. They're humbucker. But as you guys can see behind me, and this is not even all my guitars, I have a wide range of guitars. And the reason why I can't play just one brand or one type is because every guitar is a different crayon. And while we all have our favorites, the music business and the touring industry are businesses. And so, with that being said, it's not always going to be to your particular liking. The songs are not always going to be songs you enjoy. The guitar that you have to play for the gig is not always going to be your favorite guitar, because nothing works for everything, because everything's different. And so, with that being said, to color your guitar playing, before you get into notes and theory and licks and all that stuff, you want to start with tone. And then we already started with guitar setup and string gauge. So then the next thing is tone. Like, what are you trying to color? Like, what kind of picture is it? Are you a country player? In that case, you definitely want, like some good single coil action, maybe even a coil tap humbucker. That way you can get some humbucking action and then switch into full single coil. For those who don't know, because I'm sure there's a wide range of skill level in here. Coil tapping is on this guitar. On this one, excuse me, it's a push pull button. On some guitars, it's a push in button on the knob. I mean, there's various ways you can go about it. But that is a super important part is tone. So I'll go through a few different genres for those who are not sure what guitars work for what. Country music is generally Strats and Tellys. Tellys is for old school country and maybe even like lead guitar in modern country. You get these really kind of bright tones that sit in a mix really well. Country music is generally acoustic guitar, maybe two rhythm guitarists and a lead guitarist, and then like an aux piano player. And so what's happening is a lot of replication of the same frequency band. Guitars are just naturally mid heavy because that's where the instrument is designed to sit in a mix, which is great. But when you're playing with other guitars, you need to choose your area of the mix. Hey, Rodrigo, it is 9 gauge. I just saw that. I got you. I'm gonna honor my promise. Um, in country music, you want to focus on like what's my part of the mix. And this is for every genre really. Like if you're a lead guitar player and you're just playing lead lines, you want to make sure you have, a little dirty tone and you want to play kind of in your first pickup position, which will be your brightest and your thinnest when it comes to low range. So lead lines and stuff, especially if you're playing with another guitarist, you want it to kind of be brighter so that it cuts through the mix. You're making the sound man's job a lot easier when you already kind of design your tone to be in a specific place in the band. When you think of a band, you definitely want to think in terms of like, like this is the bass is the low end, guitars is mids, piano is low end and mids, like everything kind of has its thing or its space in the music. Rhythm, I generally play in the third position, which is a good blend, obvious, of your last position, your first position. And of course, some guitars only have three positions. Usually it's just the middle. Whatever one is the middle is usually the one. Oh, hold on. Oh. So you see there's less of that sheeny top end, get a little low end in there, heavier on the mids. It's usually good for chords that are going to speak clearly. I'm going to drop back my guitar compression just a little bit. It's a little over compressed. Um, Usually like sits really good in a chord range. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to be solid. You want to be real solid, and then, of course, there is the last setting. And quite honestly, I used to play in the darkest setting of the guitar for my solos and my rhythm. And I used to always look at like the legendary players like Bonamassa or any of like the like OGs of guitar playing on giant stages. And I used to see them do solos and I would see them go flick, flick, line, flick, line, flick. I used to be like, what the heck are they doing? Like they're just switching through these pickups. And then somebody finally set me down. I don't know, it was a very stupid moment on my part. Somebody finally set me down and explained to me what the heck they were doing. So when you play a line up high and you have distortion on, if you're in your first pickup, which my tone is great right now, but it can be a little bright. What can happen is it can get piercing when you go. So what you do is you switch to your darkest. And then when you go low, you go bright so that these notes don't get unintelligible. Which obviously is a better example if I just had. Hold on, I'll turn on the solo tone. Here we go. Here we go. Good old technology's always on my side. Not always, but always. So you see how it's a little shrill. So I'll just flip up. Cuts through a little better than if you. You know, you see, switching back and forth is cool. You couldn't see my hand, but I know you heard the clicking because it's coming through the mouse. So that's like the general idea of with the country and kind of. Then when you get into pop, pop is very similar to country, and what your setup will be. So I mean, usually a Strat will suffice. Again, remember that like Strat means oops. Sorry, Mr. Mike. Strat means a lot of different things because there's so many different pickup setups for Strats. Like, you know, like I have a vintage set from Seymour Duncan in one of my Strats. But like this guitar has the Fluence pickups from Fishman. It's a whole nother kind of vibe, humbucking. But then my Ernie Ball back there, that's a Valentine. That's a humbucking guitar as well, but totally different tone than this guitar. So something to keep in mind for some of my beginner friends that are probably in here. Um, that was my cell phone, and I have no idea where it is. So my ringtone is Stewie. It's really annoying, but it gets my attention, as you can tell. And hopefully it doesn't ring again. Sorry about that. It's probably my wife too. Whatever. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the thing, country and pop. R&B, I've seen R&B players do a wide range of things. My personal favorite with R&B, and again, we're talking about colorful playing still. This is not just like Justus's favorite guitars, but before you get into what's colorful on a guitar, you need like the keys of tone. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm doing a podcast because I can't see anybody. It's like podcast. Also, continue to shoot questions. I will answer any questions about anything music related. Um, so keep doing that there. Um, yeah, so R&B can be single coils or it can be humbucking. Depends on the song, depends on the band and the group. If you're in a group with a lot of piano players, you should probably go single coil. Your engineer will thank you. I had so many sound engineers when I was younger. They'd be like, "Yeah, I had to roll off all the lows and the mids in your tone." And I'd be like, "Dude, why are you messing with my tone?" But then it kind of made sense. I'm just thinking of me, like, wow, my guitar sounds amazing to me standing in front of my amp. What I'm not thinking about and what you have to consider is what you sound like with everybody. Because music is made to be played with other people. There are people who are great by themselves, but as soon as you put two great people in a band, they become like the greatest thing ever. So think about other people first. Like if the piano player's using like a deep piano with pad on the bottom of it, then like you want to roll off that low end. Bridge pickup, they're both Fluence pickups from Fishman. They're Tosin Abasi's signature set, I believe. Um, yeah, so from technologies, and then for the more advanced people, um, there's pickup sets. There's also pot types, like what kind of pots, what kind of it's a resistors. Yeah, pretty sure it's resistor, not transistor. I don't know. I've been doing car stuff now. My brain's all screwed up. But yeah, just like what type of wiring and like all that stuff also affects your tone. Again, I know guitar OGs who can tell the difference between a good pot and a bad pot. I can't hear it. And I mean, I produce and I play and do a whole bunch of stuff. I guess because in the mixing phase, you have to do so much anyway that, a little bit of boost on your upper 5K frequency is not going to make a huge difference in the scheme of a track that has 60 tracks in it. You know what I'm saying? Like on these records I've worked on that, like working with Ariana Grande or some of the artists I've worked with in the studio as a guitar player, these songs are thick. They got 80 tracks of harmonies, vocals, the beat, the extra instruments, the violin. So like there comes a point with the gear nerding where you have to give it a rest. You just got to play the music. Um I say a lot. Somebody do a count. Just count it every time I say That would be really funny to watch later. I said it again. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, guys. So from there, you have it's bothering me now. From there, you have the pickups, your pots, your tones. You say, "Wow, this guitar sounds fantastic. It sounds the way I want. It sounds good in the genre and style of music I'm playing." Now we are to the most awesome part of guitar playing. How would I approach comping a piano player? It depends on the setting. The thing is, I wasn't trained in traditional jazz, so everything I do uh, is a little unconventional in approach, which is why I've been able to play. Like I play with Herbie Hancock, I've played with Chris Dave, I've played with Terrace Martin. So I've done some damage on the jazz side with no formal jazz training whatsoever, but they hired me because of my off-kilteredness. They didn't hire me because they wanted a traditional jazz guitarist. They wanted somebody who was going to do something a little off the beaten path. So that question right there kind of relies more on like who are you playing with? Comping a piano player that's, like a straight up jazz stride player, it's going to be a lot different than comping like somebody who's more on like a futuristic jazz kind of tip, like just like fusion music, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's that on that question. All right, back to the path that we are on. We're talking about colorfulness in guitar playing. So we've gone through all the pickup, the guitar. Now we're to pedals. Now pedals are a never-ending hole of money spending. So try to get endorsed. No, but for real, even with endorsements, I still spend so much money on guitar pedals because they are all so different. Like you can have 100 overdrives and they all sound just slightly different than the other overdrive. And because of that, I have to buy it. Like there's just no way I can't not buy it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing with pedals. Again, if you're trying to get gigs, respect the artist and the genre. Do not buy a bunch of Chase Bliss audio stuff that you're not going to take the time to learn how to work to fit into the artist's music. Your job is to learn parts and play them how the record sounds. So if it's chorus, research which chorus sounds like the chorus of the artist you're playing for. And it helps because you can ask the artist to put you in contact with the producer or the guitar player that played on the song and maybe even get like the exact pedal or effect that they use. But be cognizant. Like a lot of dudes don't understand they're not getting gigs. They're great players, but they're not getting gigs because every time they go to auditions or they post a video online, like what people don't realize is artists really watch stuff you tag them in. They might not like it or say anything, but they watch stuff and they see it and they see that like maybe you played the part right, but your guitar's out of tune or your guitar tone doesn't match the tone on the song or you're just doing too much. Like they look at these little details. So you might say like, I posted that for fun. But as a musician, you as a musician wants to tour. Again, I'm not talking about everybody who wants to jam or be artist or be the guy. I'm talking about dudes who want to make a good living playing guitar for other people. You want to be cognizant of like what their music sounds like and how you're going to have to alter your own personal playing and your own personal tone to fit in that. Like my tones are not like pop music tones, but I know how to build a good pop tone. You know what I'm saying? For studio and for live, because you have to. And then when you get a lot of gigs, like now I get hired and people want me to sound like me. So however I set up and whatever pedals I bring, people are usually cool with. But like when I first started playing for Miguel, like I had to alter my entire setup. He doesn't do live amps on stage, so I was having to adjust to using a Kemper, which using a Kemper and not having any amp volume and not getting any feedback from a loud speaker on stage was really difficult for me because I grew up playing clubs, bars. I grew up playing in church primarily, where everybody's like right by each other. Like, especially on like a small church here in Kansas where I'm from, they don't have in-ear systems. You know what I'm saying? Like you have a guitar amp, they have a bass amp. The drummer has to alter his volume to compensate for everybody else's volume. Like, come on, bro. This is not Lady Gaga. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. So it was very difficult for me to adjust to an in-ear only setup, but that's something I had to do for the gig. And I mean, I played the gig, I played it and I played it to the best of my ability. And Miguel and I are still buds to this day, even with me not playing for him anymore because I respected him and I respected his music. I didn't just go in there guns blazing trying to be Justus West and forgetting that like he's worked so hard to be the front man and to do what he's doing, and I'm his support. So you got to support. Like if you're doing club gigs and stuff like that, and you might say, "Oh, there's only 50 people here. Like, how they gonna tell me how my guitar? I know how guitar." Like, respect the artist, man. Because realistically, if they weren't up there singing the song, would nobody in there be hearing you play? So you might as well just do what you got to do and do it the best you can do it. Take care of what's been given to you. So on that note, that's with pedals. I don't have any specific. I will say that Chase Bliss, for especially for studio creation, they make the best pedals in my personal opinion. Like I use their pedals on beats, I use their pedals on scores, I've used their pedals everywhere, and it's just freaking incredible. Like shout out to Joel at Chase Bliss Audio. Keely's also great. Shout out to Vertex Effects. Vertex, I use their drives live. Yes, you will go broke buying them and you'll never have enough. That is extremely correct, super collider. Um, yeah, so just like be cognizant. Like if you want gigs, you gotta fit in a little bit. And then once you're in there, you can start to be special. You know what I'm saying? Like then you can start to mix it up a little bit. So now we can get into the playing, which is very important. So first off, I want to talk about the topic that matters the most for your longevity and hand guitar playing health, and that is guitar warm-ups. So the first thing I want to show you guys, before you go into long-winded rehearsals or long-winded gigs, you want to stretch. I do that. So you're gonna put your hand out like you're giving a high five. Take your other hand, pull your fingers back. You should feel a stretch down in here to get it going. See my tattoo peeking out. I won't show it. Not because it's bad, but because I have on a hoodie and this is not about tattoos. Anyways, you want to give this a good old stretch. You want to do the opposite way. You want to push it down and then don't like put pressure on your wrist. Just make sure you're feeling that in the tendons in your arm. That's how you'll know if you're doing it right. Another really awesome warm up is simply opening, and closing your hand, kind of like this, getting a good old stretch. You'll work out all of this and all of this and all of that, and kind of get your joints kind of liquefied. You know what I'm saying? Liquefied. and you just want to keep doing this, and you'll feel a little pressure. That means you're doing it right, and it's working. And my nose itches, so if I sneeze, I don't have COVID. I promise. I just have allergies, and my basement is dusty. And it's gonna be loud. My sneezes are so obnoxious. Then you can do each finger individually. So you'll spread your fingers like that. Give it a good old wah wah yes. And this you want to do this before you start playing because this I created so many injuries and tendonitis and all sorts of problems for myself by not warming up, stretching, and then decompressing properly to give my muscles enough time to really like get a workout. Like when people go to work out, they have to warm up. Otherwise, you're gonna like freaking injure yourself. This is a great question. What do you do about stage fright? Um, Practice. I've never not been nervous when I went to go on stage. I've also I'll say in 7 years, maybe 8 years, I give myself 8 years, I've not bombed or messed up one show ever. Like I'm never like, oh, I hit a loud wrong note in a solo or anything like that. And the reason is because muscle memory. So muscle memory actually does not exist in your muscles, it exists in your brain. And what happens is when we're little kids, we have all these open pathways that we then fill with information and then they close. And over time, of course, you lose your resilience to like obtain new information. But that's why practicing guitar, especially if you started later in life, is extremely important because it's storing like the smallest details. It's storing information like how far the frets are and what a F sharp major chord feels like and what the speed like you know like all that is being stored in your brain. And so the way to avoid stage fright is to practice like a lot, like over practice. Practice until you can play the song or sing the song while doing something else. That means you really, really know it because what happens is when you're under prepared or you're under practice and then you pair nerves with that, you get the jitters and your execution you lose all your execution power and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to really 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 be on like practicing and keeping that information fresh in your brain in the tin can up here. And so that's the best way to avoid stage fright. Whatever you're going out to do, whether it's a recital, a gig, even if you just like want to jam with your homies, practice a crap load at home. Like just run scales, run the song, run the lyrics, and do that. Stage fright, it doesn't go away, I should say. Like even the dudes I know who play the biggest gigs ever, there might be a section of the song is tricky and you just get a little nervous like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't mess this up. But you won't mess it up if you practiced it enough. Like if you just practiced it so much you couldn't even take it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's like the really really important part of this practice, like practice. And as a matter of fact, I will make sure I cover proper practicing before we all go. Amen. Um, yeah, so warm ups. I gave you guys these little hand stretches. So now we're gonna get into the playing part. Uh, yep, yeah, warming up, dog. Uh, so we're gonna go scales. I don't have enough time or tablature to give to you guys, so I'm just gonna run through what I do, write it down. I teach. There's tons of teachers on YouTube, so you can find this information relatively easy by the terms I'm gonna give you. The first one is the major scale. So it's just this. Based off of a major chord, or you can say a major chord is based off a major scale. Who knows what came first, chicken or the egg? Doesn't really matter. Um, Major scale is like my number one go-to for warming up. Uh I do it on a metronome. Metronome practice is pretty important for guitarists. I feel like in getting picking evenness and getting your left and your right hand in sync when it comes to picking motion and sweeping and all the fun guitar things. And so you really want to focus on that right hand syncing so slow. As much as I would love to sit here and shred through the major scale for you, first off, I don't think I can right now because my arm's sore. And then secondly, because it makes no sense to play it fast because it's supposed to be the fundamental part of your playing. And so just like to the stage fright point, you want to play it so much that you'll never forget it. Like even if you freaking get amnesia and forget who your family is, you'll still know how to play the major scale on a guitar and you won't even know how or why. That'd be super awesome. Make a movie about that. A guy who's an amazing musician and then he loses his mind and loses his memory, but can still play amazingly and has no clue why. I'm gonna write that down. Anyways, then I'll take and alternate. Oh shoot. So that's kind of what I do with the. Do you see most of the modes is just the major scale? Actually, yes. And the thing is, I actually don't apply modes or really any theory a whole bunch when I'm building solos. I choose to play entirely melodically. What happens is guitar players oftentimes get really, really locked into patterns and specifically patterns based around modes so that they can move through chords. That is a way to think about it. And there's some guitar players that sound great in theory, like literally, no pun intended, in theory. Um, but you got to play from the heart. And the key to melodic playing and really moving the crowd that you're playing to every time is is melodic playing, which is not really based around any scale. Melody can lead you to a bunch of places, and some of those places might be what's considered the wrong note over a chord. And that's fine because all that matters is that your listeners are understanding what's coming from inside, like the place like past your heart, your soul, that thing that you have that controls everything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the thing is, your brain is on autopilot and you still can tell your brain to do stuff. So that suggests that there's more there than just like a brain and some organs. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where the heart of the music has to come from. You know what I'm saying? That's where the feeling has to come from. So, tips on practicing modal interchange, you know, I don't really have a lot of tips for that because I don't apply modes. You know, it changes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's why I've been able to transcend from playing for Ty Dolla Sign to Herbie Hancock because I've just focused on melodic playing. And what that does is it makes you compatible with everything. Theory does not make you compatible with everybody because until you understand the true essence of a style of music, no matter how many chords you know, you'll never be able to play it. And you won't ever be able to explain why. But it's because genres are not birthed out of wanting to separate everybody, but it's birthed out of the separation that we do have from each other, and that's called individualism. But even within individualism, there's still an element of camaraderie between us and the styles of music that we gravitate to. Just because out of 7 billion people, I would imagine two of them have the same opinion on a couple things every now and then. And so, with that being said, you know, you want to understand genres for the heart of the people, not the modes that back the theory of the genre. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we could say that country music is definitely based off of dominant seven and whatever mode dominant seven applies to. But that doesn't matter because it's not going to make you twangy. How do you play with twang? Well, you study country artists, you study where they come from, and you study why they're twangy. What about country music culture, which is not a skin color or even a part of the world? It's just people who resonate with that genre. What makes it twang? What makes it country? Where is my phone? It's literally like a go. Oh, I found it. Hi. It was over there. Anyways, we're back. Uh I put on silence, I promise. So yeah, that's kind of like my things with modes. I have friends that know a lot more theory than me, and they still all say the same thing, like, bruh, but when it really boils down to it, what does this theory mean? Theory is just a means of communication. It is not supposed to be the foundation of music, whether rather an aid or a vehicle to carry music between people so that I can write down on a piece of paper what R&B looks like on paper and help you understand it. But you still won't understand it until you understand why African American people invented R&B. Why, like, where did this come from? What were the people going through? Why is rock and roll so aggressive? Why is metal music even more aggressive? Why is metal now more technical? Like, you have to understand the people. You have to actually talk to people and understand where they come from to understand why they play. And that's what I've devoted kind of my musical journey to. And because of that, genres just spill out of me. I'm not sitting here like, I want to make a trap beat and then a pop beat. And then I want to play some prog on Instagram. Like, no, that's literally me understanding people and then resonating with their type of emotions. You know what I'm saying? So, M. Lawrence, I hope that helps some. Uh, Benjamin, writing guitar parts for yourself and for a pop artist, are they different headspaces? Yes, there are different headspaces. Again, it goes back to soul expression. And, pop artists are usually a certain kind of way, which we don't have to go into how people are, because they're not all the same. But generally, the pop artists that I've worked for, um, they all kind of have a similar approach to what they think music should be and what the bar of complicated is, like what's too much and what's not enough. And usually, too much is more than 5 chords. So, shout out to Charlie Puth for doing awesome pop music that has a lot of chords. I like that. I dig that stuff. Um, and so yeah, totally different headspaces because like my headspace is just different than pop music headspace. And when I want to do pop music, I listen to a bunch of pop music until I'm in that headspace, and then I write some pop music, and then I go back to being my normal self. Kellen Maloney, I've heard some guitarists like Steve Vai and SRV say you should learn either as much music theory as you can or none and just play with feel. How much truth do you find in that? I lean 80% to feel and 20% to theory because I know so many people who paid thousands of dollars to go to school. School doesn't teach you music, they teach you notes, and they teach you a suggested order of which you should play these notes. And I don't necessarily say anybody has the key to how to play music. So music theory can't claim to be the key to music because some of the most successful musicians of all time. And again, we're not talking about musician favorites. We are talking about world favorites. Yes, musician favorites normally know theory. Why? Because us musicians understand theory. So, you talk about Jocko, like, yeah, Jocko knew theory. You know what I'm saying? But he's not like, it's not like you talk about Stevie Wonder. Like Stevie Wonder is weighted on feel. All those crazy chord progressions and all the stuff that's present in his music is felt. None of those chords do you go like, that's a crazy chord and not feel something. You have to have both. You have to have both to be widely successful, which I'm sure everybody in here wants to be widely successful. To appeal to the masses, you have to find the code of wide appealing. And there's always going to be people who don't like you. but there is a way to appeal to a wide range of people. And that is through feeling, because we all can feel something. Not everybody understands music theory, and not everybody understands all the crap we do with music theory. It is what it is. Like, some people are really great at painting, and you might look at a painting and say it's dope, but you don't understand that just to be able to get good paintbrush strokes is an art in itself. Like, when I watch my painter homies, like, these dudes like literally just practice painting lines just so their line work will be clean. That's technique, but that still didn't make their painting like incredible because their lines are perfect. That's an enhancer to what's already inside them. You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of how I feel about music theory. It definitely will enhance you, because what can happen is, when you hear a chord, you'll recognize them faster, and you have a way to label and organize them in a way where you can say, okay, this chord's major seven, then I'm gonna drop to this diminished chord and then to a minor chord. And identifying that helps you to connect the term with the shape and patterns on the guitar itself. But the notes that you choose and how you choose to move through them is not in music theory. Notice in every music theory class, they can say, this is the scale, this is the mode, this is the chord, this is the name of the chord, this is the chord that is, a partial of this. They can do all that, but nobody can tell you exactly what to play. They can tell you exactly what other people have played, past tense, not what to play, which is really future and present, depending on how you want to view it. Dude, I feel like a freaking college professor. I'm like teaching like music theory psychosis. You know what I'm saying? This is awesome. Favorite teacher? I have a lot of teachers. I learned from pretty much everybody I ever played music. So I can't really answer that one. This is all keys to colorful guitar playing. The soul is the center of it. You know what I'm saying? But I can give you some cool little guitar diddles to help express yourself better. And so we're going to start. We already started with using the major scale as a warm-up tool. Now let's get into a couple more. I'm going to do this quickly because we are reaching a time in which I would like to end. Major 7 arpeggio. Really helpful. Play from the A string. Oh shoot. Oh, play the right chord to go with the scale. That might help. Another one is one that my good friend Win from PRS taught me. Shout out to PRS Guitars. They're all my buds. I love them. It's kind of like this descending. So you play 4 notes, then you go up 2 notes, play 4 more. The reason I like these 3 particular exercises because they are based off of simple finger patterns and simple chords to get your fingers amplified for playing. That was cool. That was a little cool association there. Y'all caught that? Just like good old stuff that's like classic practice that will never go out of style. Some genres might go out of style, some chords and techniques might go out of style, but that will never go out of style. How essential would you say reading really is these days in the touring industry, especially for guitarists who've gone mostly the by ear route? This is a good question. Let me tell you, it depends on the gig. There are a lot of gigs where they still read sheet music. A lot of gigs that pay a lot of money where they read sheet music. Some of them have chord charts. So at least at bare minimum, learn your chords and what they are. And get a chord book, because sometimes I be forgetting because I don't use this information a lot. and then I get a gig where one comes up, and maybe before I go to the gig, I will read my chord book and just go through different chords, maybe chords I forgot the terms. Like it's okay to forget. Like you don't always have to be the freshest on your music theory knowledge. Like I like to give people a pass. Just be prepared for the gig. But like when you're at home, like bruh, it doesn't matter if you forgot what the name of this chord is. Just Google it and move on with your life. You know, like don't be like, oh, I'm so lazy. Oh, I'm such a horrible guitarist. Like that doesn't make you a bad guitarist. A lot of other things make you a bad guitarist. Um, for pop and R&B gigs, it's straight up ear. Your ears got to be sharp. They don't care about theory. Every pop and rap gig I've ever done, from Mac Miller, Ty Dolla Sign, Miguel, Ariana Grande, like all of these gigs and studio gigs have been 100% primarily ear. They send you the music beforehand, and I have to find the guitar in the mix, learn the voicings, get the tones, and there are no chord sheets because you're not working with high level music as far as music knowledge. You're working with high level music presentation. You're not working with high level theory. And so, like, these people make songs. They don't care about what notes they use to make it. They just care about the quality of the song. So, if you want to play for mainstream artists that are more on the pop and the rap side, don't worry about sight reading. You're not going to use it. Like I'm just being 100% with you. I've been on most of the gigs. They don't sight read. And if you're really good and they did have a sight read part, they'll not even care because they'll just like you and want to hire you anyway. But there are some high level classic gigs. For instance, if you get a call to play for Barbara Streisand, you should know how to sight read. If you get a call to play for a lot of old school country artists, you should be able to read charts because they read charts. But like when I played for Vince Gill, we didn't have any charts. We went by ear. I learned the song by ear in my hotel and then went down and played it with him. So you know, what a lot of musicians will do is make their own chart. If you have problems remembering music or you have a short deadline leading up to your rehearsal, make your own chart, which means you don't necessarily have to know how to sight read. You just need to know in your own kind of language how to write down these songs in a way where you can remember section length, chord length, um, different chord variation voicings, like just like the small details that you might forget once you get in rehearsal and you got a little pressure on you. So we went through warm-ups, guitar setup, pickup setup. uh yes, I do teach. I give Skype lessons. If you look me up on Instagram, Justus, Justus period West, there's then a link to my Patreon there, and you can follow me and like all my videos because I'm sure you're enjoying this. The main technique I use to add coloring to my playing is double stopping. So the main key with double stopping is learning all your inversions. For those who are beginners, that is taking one triad and reordering the notes so that your lead note is different. So like this is an E major triad. This is also an E major triad. And this is also an E major triad. Now, the best way to look at double stopping is you're taking these triads, usually making them into dyads, which di just means two, guys, and you're making melodic licks. So if it's ah, oh, that was tight. So double stopping is my thing. I also use a lot of other techniques, but double stopping is like numero uno on the thing, like playing guitar. That's the thing. Now on a gig you have parts. So again, it doesn't matter how many licks you know, it doesn't matter how fast you can play, it doesn't matter how many techniques, because you're most likely gonna be playing 6 or 7 chords in that song, unless you play like instrumental jazz or swing jazz, and you have a lot of chords. And I feel bad for you because I make a lot of money playing a very few amount of chords, which is fun because it's supposed to be fun. Music is not supposed to be about like the showboating. And a lot of jazz players hate pop guitarists and hate you're not using any theory, you're not using any skill. Like, what are you doing? You're just playing four chords. Like anybody can do that. Anybody can't do that because you didn't get hired. And so you like you want to be like sensitive to people's different genres, but again, in understanding what applies to every genre, you will have respect for all kinds of players. You won't disrespect anybody because you understand that what they're doing because they developed that skill specifically, and you may or may not have that skill as well. You might not deem that skill important, but they're doing their thing. So don't disrespect them. You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, again, what I opened up with, the music business is a business. Chick-fil-A is in the food business, you know, freaking Freddy's, McDonald's. And I'm sure they got like these crazy palettes and they just make this awesome food at home. But when it comes down to it, they're gonna give you a chicken sandwich, bro. They're gonna give you a chicken sandwich. You have 8 optional sauces and a couple salads because that's business. That's, you know, how the brain receives information is through simplicity. You know, like that's it. Like that's the thing, you know. And so on that note, I want to leave you guys. I'm gonna just run through all I just said. Light string gauges if you want to play fast, unless you have bigger strings, then up your gauge because you'll hit your notes too hard. uh so light string gauges, keys to colorful guitar playing. Light string gauges so you can move around the guitar without difficulty. You know, I know it's like you want a badge of honor for playing with 11s because I'm strong. But like if your hand's cramping up or you can't play that fast because your strings are too heavy, you're limiting yourself. It's not an achievement. Electronics, respect the genre or respect yourself if you don't have to play a specific genre. Find your thing if you're an artist, you know, and get your thing together. Make sure it sounds good. But if you're trying to play gigs, excuse me, I don't know why that keeps happening. If you're trying to play gigs, figure out what genre you want to play and be successful in, and figure out what tones work best in that genre and really hone in on that. You dig? Uh, Pick up positions. You know, don't always play bright, don't always play dark. Don't be afraid to change pickup to positions multiple times in a song because a song is not linear. You know what I'm saying? So it's just not just always going like that. Songs have hills, peaks, and valleys, you know. So respect the song as well. Um, Warm ups, make sure you warm up before you do exhaustive uh rehearsals and gigs, you know, give a good old stretch, give a good old, you know, shoulder action. But yeah, I went over these. Put your fingers here. And really like any arm stretches you find online will work as well. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not specifically like guitar players only do these stretches. It's like if they say it's a good arm stretch, the likelihood of it being good for you as a guitar player is pretty high. So then from there, we got into, you know, these chord warm ups, you know, major scale, major 7 arpeggios, and then just alternating, you know, you want to hit that for sure. And that's what to me is fundamentally and foundationally the keys to colorful guitar playing. The biggest one, now this is the biggest takeaway, guys, before we go, is really tapping into who you are as an individual and playing from your soul. And you know, SRV or like Steve Vai, like all the goats, all the best of the best, even piano Chick Corea, you know, Art Tatum, like Jaco Pastorius, like we can go down the list. They all just play from their hearts, man. They played through their personal experiences and they gave you all that they had. And so I know we spend a lot of time trying to be these dudes because they're amazing, but always remember, and this is the takeaway, that they only became the greats we know them as today by being themselves. Yeah, that's a mic drop. And with that, guys, I think that that is all the information for now that I can give. I teach lessons via Patreon. Find me on Instagram, Justus, JUSTUS.West. It's Justice League TV. It's the whole thing. Um, hit me up there. You guys leave me a comment saying if you were in this, I'll be sure to, do something. I don't know. I can't promise I'll follow you, but I can promise that I will see it and I will return with a comment. Um, I really appreciate you guys who are in here who sit through this, guys and gals, if any gals are present. And yeah, that's just about it, guys. I appreciate you all again, and I think it is about time for me to sign off. So, yeah, you all have a great weekend and have fun playing guitar.